Hello and welcome to Sports Fan Entertainment's yet another live edition of the MJ Take podcast here on a Tuesday night. Remember, these podcasts will be streamed live on YouTube Tuesday nights and released on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud late Tuesday night. So make sure to listen on those platforms if you're unable to catch the live stream, or check the live replay on youtube.com/JamesCarterTV, or just look up the YouTube channel Sports Fan Entertainment. How's everyone doing? How was your weekend? The NFL season is approaching oh so slowly, but still somewhat quickly, and we just cannot hope. We can't do anything but just hope and pray for the moment that the NFL finally comes back. Oh, we need it more than ever. Look, I'm not a baseball fan. I know a lot of you guys are. I'm not. So this time of year is just absolutely dreadful for me. I'm not watching baseball. I have nothing to watch. There's not much NFL news right now as training camps have not begun. And even when they begin, all we're going to hear is, okay, this person tore their ACL. Oh, this person looks great in training camp. Everyone looks great in training camp. We're going to make this sort of improvement. Like, there's only one NFL team. Right, there's only one NFL team that fan base will admit, okay, we're probably going to win less games this year, and that's probably the Miami Dolphins. Everyone else is convinced that they're going to make some sort of win improvement this upcoming season. Only Miami Dolphins fans. That's the only fan base that looks at themselves and says, we're going to make a win, or we're going to win less games than we did last year. Maybe the Kansas City Chiefs will tell you they'll win maybe one less. Maybe another fan base might tell you, okay, maybe one or two games less. But outside of that, everyone believes that they're going to be a playoff contender at the very worst. Okay, maybe even at the very best. But even like the Cardinal fans, the Jets fans, the Bills fans, they'll tell you we're playoff sleepers. Look at our team. Hey, don't forget about us. So everyone's optimistic. Everyone believes this and that. Everyone is excited for this 2019 NFL season. And we're going to continue today with our division previews. We did the AFC South last week. We're going to do the NFC South today. But before we do that, we're going to begin this podcast with my movie review, okay? Because I watched The Lion King last week. I watched it in IMAX. Remember, I am an AMC A-lister, okay? I'm on that AMC A-list. That is where I belong. I'm an A-lister, not only there, but in real life as well. But I'll be an A-list for AMC as well, okay? I'm an A-lister everywhere, people, but especially for AMC. So I want to begin by talking about this movie because I'm excited to talk about this movie because this movie is very special to me, at least this story, let me say that. The Lion King has been near and dear to my heart. You know, it's been, I identify with that movie. As far as I'm concerned, I'm Simba, okay? You might as well call me Simba, okay? Screw MJ, screw Munya Jumbi. No, I'm Simba. That's who I am. That's who I've identified with ever since birth. And you know, this movie was, unfortunately, a shot-for-shot remake of the original. Now, some people felt that it was lifeless, that it was soulless. I won't go that far. I had a lot of fun with the movie, actually, in the first half. I thought, you know, the little kid that played young Simba, I don't know his name, but he's a young actor. I thought he did a brilliant job. And the younger one who played Nala, I don't know her name, but she was the sister in the movie Us that came out only a couple months ago. I thought she did a fantastic job. So I thought they actually had good energy about them, and they did a good job carrying the first half of the film. You saw James Earl Jones playing Mufasa. He was still doing his James Earl Jones things. You deliberately disobeyed me. Okay, he was still doing his thing, so you liked everything that you saw, or at least I did, from the first half of the film. But my problem is, look, if you want to remake these Disney classics, okay, I have no problem with that. This is something that I like because, you know, Disney is incapable of coming up with original ideas anymore. You know, I don't know who was writing for them in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, but they no longer have that type of creative talent. They just don't. I don't know why, but for some reason they're just unable to do that. Frozen stinks. I don't care what anyone says. You know, maybe it's okay at the very best, but it can't even hold a pinky ring finger to the Lion King. I mean, what are we talking about? Frozen versus the Lion King, right? And yet Frozen is the new version. People say it's the greatest animated film of all time. I know, at least box office wise, if you don't adjust for inflation, I think it is. Frozen? Are you kidding me? Frozen stinks. It can't even hold a candle to the Lion King. I mean, what are we talking about? So, look, the Lion King remake, it was a shot-for-shot remake, and that annoys me, because although the original was classic, it's great to me. It's the best animated movie of all time. It's the absolute best. There is no animated movie, Pixar, whatever, I don't care, that can ever defeat the story of the Lion King. Maybe not ever, maybe one that hasn't been written yet, but nothing that has been created up to this moment can rival the Lion King. I don't want to hear it. The story's perfect. And yes, it borrows a lot from Shakespeare's Hamlet. I'll grant you that. But that's because Hamlet is a great story in and of itself. The Lion King is perfect. But with that said, you don't need to completely do a shot-for-shot remake where, dude, I can predict the dialogue second for second. The second for second, I can predict dialogue. I can tell you exactly, because I remember the original movie. I've watched it at least in my lifetime 30 times, okay? I was one of those lame kids that didn't have but like 10 VHS tapes. That's all that I had. That's all I had to my name. I had The Lion King. I had Toy Story 1 and 2. I had Monsters, Inc., whatever. And I'd watch them again and again and again and again. And you all know me. I'm the one that wants to be a voice actor someday. At least, do that part-time. I'm over here impersonating Mufasa. You deliberately disobeyed me, Simba. Everything the light touches is our kingdom. I've done this already. This is my move. And yet we do the same dialogue. Look, the dialogue was great, but we can switch it up. Think about it like this. Whenever we do a new Spider-Man or a new Batman, they still borrow a lot from the original material. They still borrow a lot either from the original films or the original comic book. But they change the dialogue. They do interesting stuff with the story. They change some things. You don't need to do the same damn dialogue. When we did the new Jurassic Park, when we did the new, what else? These new versions of these classic movies, you don't need the same dialogue. You can actually improve upon the original. The original is great. Anything can be improved upon. Let's get more into the dynamic between Mufasa and Scar. Let's examine that relationship. You can do a flashback. How about this? There's actually original material about the relationship between Mufasa and Scar and their upbringing, them growing up, why Scar learns to resent Mufasa. Get a little deeper, not just because he wants to be king, but maybe because Mufasa was a bit of a bully to him, because he was always the stronger one. Maybe Scar got his heart broken by, what's her name? Zarabi, okay? Let's show some of that. Actually, they actually hinted at that in this movie. So let's get into that. Let's have a flashback. Let's get more into the actual love between Simba and Nala, instead of just, they see each other again and they just fall in love. Maybe let's get into more of those dynamics. Let's get into maybe, you can expand the story. There are things that you can do instead of just having the same story, which, okay, at the very least, that's fine, but you can't have the same dialogue too. Like, I should not be able to sing it yet again, when I was a young warthog. When I was a young warthog. I shouldn't be able to completely see that coming. I've seen it already. We've done it already. We don't need to do the exact same dialogue again. You can have the same circle of life sequence. You can have the same songs. You can have the same, I just can't wait to be king. You need to do the whole be prepared number, by the way. They completely shortchanged that one. But we don't need the same dialogue. We don't need the same shot-for-shot scenes. There's a scene where Simba's chasing Rafiki through the forest. It was the same shot for shot, and then Rafiki pokes his head out, from the branches above. I mean, we don't need I just don't get why it was the exact same dialogue. I don't understand it. With that said, the visuals were great. I loved Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar. He was terrific. He was menacing. He was vicious. He was fearful. He was frightening. He dominated the movie for me. Again, I love the young Simba. I thought Donald Glover was actually quite flat. I didn't see anything outside of him that was, or anything from him that was particularly entertaining. Beyonce, we know she can act, and this movie continues to confirm that. But her vocals were great, and that's fine. And whatever she and Donald Glover were singing their duets together, she absolutely killed him, and there was no doubt about that. So definitely Donald Glover did not live up to his end of the bargain there. But ultimately, look, I liked the movie. I'll say that. I mean, it was annoying that it was a shot-for-shot remake, and the dialogue was 90% the same. 90%, that's too much. Okay, 50% to me would have been pushing it, but 90% is ridiculous. I just don't know why it's the same dialogue. A lot of the dialogue in the previous movie is great, but you do not need the exact same dialogue. As someone that knows the dialogue, I can repeat the dialogue. If you wanted me to completely sit down and write The Lion King or recite The Lion King, I probably could do at least 50% of it, just off the top of my head right now as we speak. But it just shouldn't be the case. I have a problem with that. So overall rating, if I had to rate the movie, right now it's sitting at about a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think that's fair. I would give it a 6 out of 10, honestly. I liked it. I just liked it more because the original story was great, and they just completely did the original story. And real quick, we're going to change subjects on this, but Josh Martin asked a relevant question. What do you think about them remaking Mulan? Again, I'm okay with the remake, and you're going to see some new things. They're taking some creative risks. You're not seeing Mushu in this. It seems as if Mulan will be in full gear female Mulan for at least most of this movie. It doesn't seem like she's even trying to appear as if she's a boy, which is interesting. I'm intrigued. They're doing different stuff over there. So that's why I'm more intrigued by Mulan. And if you watch the Aladdin remake, they did some different stuff, right? Will Smith did not have the same dialogue as Robin Williams, okay? Like, he might have said the same things in terms of just giving the rules, and then he still had his rendition of Friend Like Me, but he had his own dialogue, he had his own separate story, and how he meets this chick, and how, they told the story in terms of Will Smith narrating the story and telling his kids. They did some different things. They took some leaps and with the original story, and even expanded upon it in actually a pretty good fashion. And yet, even though it doesn't live up to the original, it to me was a better remake than this Lion King remake. So again, it's a 6 out of 10. If you really want to see it, if you haven't rewatched The Lion King in a while, go ahead and see it. Visually it's outstanding, but I feel like for most people, maybe you should just wait until you see it on DVD, to be quite honest with you. So with that said, let us then move on to the NFC South preview, okay? That's what most people here on this sports channel, aka podcast, wherever or however you may be listening. Sorry, Colin Cowherd just took your little catchphrase there. Most of you are caring about the NFL, so we'll go ahead and get into the NFL now. And if we have time, and I've said this for weeks now, we're going to go ahead and do my Marvel movie tier ranking list. Okay, so with that said, let's preview the NFC South, where good luck figuring out what the hell is going to happen in this division. We never know. Okay, we try to figure out every year. We sit down, we make predictions, and a lot of times they end up wrong. Now, last year, I was under the impression that the Saints were going to struggle. I saw their schedule. I thought it was a difficult schedule. I thought they were going to have problems with their schedule, and they absolutely ran through it. They absolutely killed it. They had no problem with it. They went 13-3. And they almost went to the Super Bowl. What will the New Orleans Saints do this upcoming season? But first, let's look at their off season. So, we begin with Nick Easton, who finds himself moving from the Minnesota Vikings to the New Orleans Saints. 4 years, $22.5 million. Look, I don't know why you're signing an offensive lineman from the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, the offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings has been an absolute weakness for them for years now, and Nick Easton has been a big part of that. I'm not sure if they're expecting him to start for this football team, but that starter money and at that center position, one that used to hold Max Unger, I'm not sure if Nick Easton is going to be the guy to really hold that position down. So now that center position for the New Orleans Saints is definitely looking like a weakness to me. They lost Alex Okafor to the Kansas City Chiefs, 3 years, $17.9 million. I was never a big Alex Okafor fan. I don't think they're really going to miss him, so that really doesn't matter much to me. Tight end Jared Cook, 2 years, $15 million. He will join the New Orleans Saints. and he'll do good things for the New Orleans Saints. Look, Jared Cook, I know Jared Cook very well. Not many people remember this, but he's a former Tennessee Titan. Yes, he's been a journeyman for the past number of seasons, finding himself on the Oakland Raiders and the Green Bay Packers, but now he finds himself on the New Orleans Saints. And who did he play for last season? Was it Green Bay? Or no, it was Oakland. Yeah, it was Oakland. He did very good things for Oakland. So now he finds himself in New Orleans. And look, if Drew Brees could get a lot out of Ben Watson a couple of years ago, I'm pretty sure he's going to do good things with this guy as well. But I mean, imagine Coby Fleener, though. I mean, Coby Fleener, where did this guy go? I mean, how about that blast from the past? Coby Fleener, he is no longer on the roster. Where is this guy? I'm going to look up real quick where Coby Fleener went. Is he still in the league? Yeah, he's currently a free agent. Yeah, that was definitely a disaster for the New Orleans Saints. So they hope they get more out of Jared Cook than they ever got out of Coby Fleener. But considering the fact that Cook produced for the Green Bay Packers, produced for the Tennessee Titans, and last year produced for the Oakland Raiders, I expect him to also produce for the New Orleans Saints. And we'll see how that combination works, but I'm sure it will be pretty prolific. We move on to Malcolm Brown. He goes to the New Orleans Saints from New England, 3 years, $50 million. And this is a damn good contract and a damn good deal and a pretty good player here for the New Orleans Saints. I'm shocked that the Patriots let him go for only 3 years, $15 million. This is a very welcome addition to me for the New Orleans Saints. They do, however, lose Mark Ingram, 3 years, $15 million to the Baltimore Ravens. I'm surprised they let him go. You know, Mark Ingram is a guy that gives you, a different, a good change of pace from Alvin Kamara, a different type of running back there at that position. And losing him, I think, is going to hurt a little bit. Now, they bring in Latavius Murray, and I just can't wait for this Latavius Murray conversation to end. You know, there are so many running backs in this league. Latavius Murray, Carlos Hyde, Jerick McKinnon. Like, we keep talking about them. They never really do anything. They don't have much talent. Why are we still talking about these guys? Why are we still expecting these guys to be solid contributors in this league? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't think Latavius Murray is going to offset the loss of Mark Ingram here. Maybe to a certain extent. Maybe he'll be 70% of Mark Ingram, but not much more than that, and maybe not even that. So I don't like the addition of Latavius Murray. We had Teddy Bridgewater coming back. You guys signed Mario Edwards. Craig Robertson came back, lost Ben Watson. That's pretty much it. And you guys also kept P.J. Williams for a cheap 1 year, $2.5 million deal. Okay, that's not bad. Oh, and Rashard Matthews. Why you guys took a chance on him? That's interesting. You move on to the draft. Okay, so for the New Orleans Saints draft, in the second round, they take center Eric McCoy out of Texas A&M. Pretty good pick. And hopefully he starts over Nick Easton. Interesting, though, that you would pay Nick Easton that much money and still invest in a second-round center, but whatever, to each his own. You guys also draft Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the 4th round and Saquon Hampton in the 6th round. These are 2 safeties, one out of Rutgers and one out of Florida. And then 2 7th-round picks that no one cares about. So, not much to speak of in terms of this free agency or the draft, but that's fine. This is a Super Bowl contending team. This is a team that we expect to be, once again, in that, Super Bowl picture. They didn't need to make many moves. But the problem is you obviously know that the clock is ticking on Drew Brees. So I would have liked to have seen some more urgency here out of the New Orleans Saints offseason for sure. But I think they did enough to, again, compete this upcoming season. I'll pull up their schedule real quick and see what they're facing there, but let's just talk about the NFC South in general. I feel like every year I do this for my 32 teams and 32 days series, which, by the way, is currently going on the YouTube channel Sports Fan Entertainment. 1 team a day I give an extensive season preview for. And by the way, after this podcast tonight, I will upload the Kansas City Chiefs video, so make sure you stick around and watch that. But every single year, I literally pick these teams to go like 3-3 in the division. Every single one of them, except for maybe one will go 2-4 and one will go 4-2 to me. Like, I'm not gonna pick any of them to go 5-1 or 6-0. It may happen, don't get me wrong. I mean, it probably will happen that one of them does go 5-1. I just can't do it because they're all so close to me. They know each other so well. The one that, struggles the most, at least, historically would definitely be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But, with the addition of Bruce Arians, man, you have to respect them this year. So I can only project like a 4-2 division record for the Saints. The Falcons had their struggles last year, as did the Panthers, but you'd be shocked if they finished worse than they did last season. I mean, 7-9 for both of those two teams last year was pretty surprising. Especially for the Panthers that started off as strong as they did. Now, we have to see if Cam Newton's healthy and what's going on with his shoulder and this, and that. And the Falcons still have their flaws, and I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think they're going to be at least a 1 or 2 game improvement. And let me see if you guys swept either one of those teams last year. I'm pretty sure you swept the Carolina Panthers and split with the Falcons. But I remember this for sure. You lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers week 1 last season. And that was very surprising in and of itself. So you guys lost to the Buccaneers. And you lost the final game, week 17 game against the Panthers. But you didn't care about that one. So, and the other game against the Panthers at Carolina, week 15, was a close victory. 12-9. So you're able to dominate the NFC South last season. I mean, you went 4-2, but the last game you lost, you really didn't care about. You're able to have an overtime victory in Atlanta, 43-37. But I would expect, again, a 4-2 performance in the NFC South. I think that's a good estimate to have. So the question is, from there, what will be your records against the other divisions, against the other teams in your conference? So you guys go up against the AFC South, who we talked about last week. And the AFC South is a difficult conference. It's a conference that features the Indianapolis Colts coming off of a 10-6 season, and a season that I think they're going to continue to build off of. You look at Andrew Luck in the strong season he had last year, 39 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and the talent around him just continues to mature and improve, and you have to be really concerned about that. And then defensively, you look at Malik Hooker and Darius Leonard. There's a lot of young talent on that football team, and they added in a nice veteran presence in Justin Houston. So the Colts will definitely be a difficult matchup for the New Orleans Saints. Now, luckily, they host them in New Orleans, but if you don't think Andrew Luck is not going to give you a good, shootout here, you're mistaken. I mean, it's going to be a shootout in New Orleans week 15, so you need to definitely look out for that. And then you guys go to Tennessee week 16. And look, I'm going to say this. You're going to lose one of these games. I don't know which one, but I feel pretty confident, pretty comfortable saying you're going to lose one of those games there against the AFC South. Then you guys go to Jacksonville in week 6, and you host Houston week 1. I think you'll win both of those. So I'll say 3-1 against the AFC South. And then the rest of the schedule, you guys also go up against, the NFC, should be NFC West. Yes, as you guys go to LA to face the LA Rams and to Seattle to face the Seahawks in weeks 2 and 3 respectively. Those are difficult matchups there. Now, Seattle, I have my concerns about, but anytime you go to Seattle, it's a problem. It's a very difficult place to play, so I'll say you definitely lose one of these games. You could lose 2, but I think it's safer to say you lose one of those. But then you guys host the 49ers, you host the Cardinals. Those should be wins without a doubt. And then you host the teams that finished also in first place in the NFC, which means that you host the Dallas Cowboys in week 4. And this also means that you guys face from the NFC North the Chicago Bears, who you travel to in week 7. You guys go to Chicago. So again, I look at this New Orleans Saints schedule, and we don't go, specific win-loss predictions. We save that for my 32 teams of 32-day series. But you look at this schedule, and again, I say it's difficult for the New Orleans Saints. That's what I say, right? But I said the same thing last year, dude. And they were able to get so many tough victories. They went to Atlanta and won. They found themselves going to Baltimore and won. They went to Minnesota and won. They hosted the Rams and beat them. They absolutely blew out the Philadelphia Eagles in New Orleans, but they absolutely blew them out. They eventually ended up sweeping the Falcons. They barely lost to the Cowboys. They swept, they didn't sweep the Bucs, but, they beat the Bucs in Tampa Bay, and they beat the Steelers, albeit in a close game, week 16, but they beat the Steelers. So, despite the difficult games they had last season, they stepped up to the plate, and they got it done. So, there are reasons for concern. And let me see, what was the record against winning teams, though, last season? If I had to count right now, they didn't actually have to face many winning teams last season. So, that is cause for pause, right? I only count 1 in the Baltimore Ravens, 2 in the Rams, 3 in the Eagles, 4 and 5. So 5 games against winning teams last season. of which they won 4. Okay, and those 5 winning teams would be the Baltimore Ravens, the Minnesota Vikings, the LA Rams, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost to the Dallas Cowboys. That's interesting. That might lead you to believe that if they face some tougher teams this upcoming year, they would struggle. And I look at that specifically when I look at Atlanta and Carolina, where again, I just don't see them having that kind of success. And again, they split with Carolina, so that's not a big deal. But really, Atlanta, I just highly doubt that they really that they split Atlanta again. So I think it will be a slight step back for the New Orleans Saints this year, but I still expect them to make the playoffs, and I still expect them to be a very strong team. Will they compete for a Super Bowl again? I don't see the improvements here, though. I just don't see them being as strong as a team as they were last year overall. That's not something that I see, especially with this downgrade at the center position. And hopefully Eric McCoy can come in and start immediately and really make a strong impact. But one thing I will look out for Marcus Davenport at the defensive end position. If he can come in and really have a strong, this should be now his second season or even his third, then that could be a nice X factor. But I have to think it's a 1 or 2 game, maybe even 3 game regression for the New Orleans Saints, and not for them to be as strong title contenders as they were last season. So with that said, we move on to the next team in the NFC South, and we move on to the Atlanta Falcons. Hold on real quick as I take a sip of this water. So we have the Atlanta Falcons coming up next. Let's look at their free agency. Firstly, they lost Robert Alford to the Arizona Cardinals. 3 years, $22.5 million. Not a big deal. Never been a big Robert Alford fan. We look at James Carpenter. Okay, they brought him in 4 years, $21 million. This guy's been mediocre for years. They let him go from Seattle for reasons, dude. Like, Seattle's been absolutely in need of good offensive linemen. If he was a good offensive lineman, they would have kept him. So I don't really care about James Carpenter. We'll see what he can do. I know the Falcons have been yearning, for some good guards for a while now. And did Andy Levitre, I think he retired or something, but he's out of the lineup. So Carpenter will definitely probably be starting at this left guard position, but I would not have high hopes for him. It wasn't too much money that was given out here, only $8.2 million guaranteed, but I don't love this. Now, they also brought in Jamon Brown from the New York Giants, 3 years, $18.75 million. This guy is a former St. Louis Ram, and another guy that has also been a disappointment throughout his career. Now, he's only 26 years old. He could take that next step and ascend his game to the next level, but that's not a contract that I love nor a player. Look at defensive tackle Alan Bailey. They bring him in from the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 years, $10.5 million. I actually like this deal. They do, however, lose Tevin Coleman to the 49ers on a 2-year, $8.5 million deal. I would have liked for you guys to have kept Tevin Coleman. I liked him as a good change of pace back in Atlanta. I do think he will be missed. You bring in Luke Stalker, not a big deal. You lose Bruce Irvin. He's kind of fading out anyway. And that's pretty much it for the significant moves in the offseason. Now, one thing that's already been interesting, and I talked about this earlier, like we're already seeing some injuries, and we saw J.J. Wilcox. He went down for the Atlanta Falcons the other day. I can't remember the injury. I want to say it was either an ACL or an Achilles, but now he's done. And Michael Bennett, who's not a big player, but he also went down. So it looks like the injury bug continues to be a problem for this Atlanta Falcons team. It's absolutely ridiculous. I feel bad for Atlanta Falcons fans. They have to deal with this every single year. They just keep going through this injury bug. I remember looking back at last year's training camp, looked like every day you hear something about Atlanta Falcons players going down. Hopefully that trend stops immediately because they're going to need to be healthy if they want to compete with these other teams in this division this upcoming year. So with that said, let's look at their draft. Let's begin with their first round pick, 14th overall. The guard out of Boston College, Chris Lindstrom. And again, I didn't really scout the offensive lineman this year, but from what I saw, this is a decent pick. You should expect decent things from him. We also have tackle Caleb McGarry. Was this the first round they took him in the 2019 NFL draft? I don't remember this. Did this really happen? Wow. I think I might have blanked out for this one. Yeah, I think I actually missed this pick. Wow, you guys took another offensive lineman in the first round? Was he only a first-round draft pick? Wow, he was. Caleb McGarry, first round, 31 overall by the Atlanta Falcons. So definitely a very interesting pick here. So definitely getting more offensive linemen in, and I like that movement. Again, so I don't know why you guys shelved out so much money for Jamon Brown and James Carpenter, and there weren't many dollars attributed to those contracts, so it's not a big deal. But I don't know why you guys attributed that much money to those guys to only then turn around and draft these offensive linemen in the first round. But okay, you know what you have to do. You have to protect Matt Ryan in order to have a good chance to win every single weekend. So I have no problem with this. Although this is not a player I heard much about, heading into the 2019 NFL draft. Maybe he can play, but I didn't hear much about him. And for a guy that had, again, one of the more accurate mock drafts in the entire media, this is not a guy ever mocked to go first round. Okay, so that's concerning to me. From there, we have a couple fourth round picks. Kendall Sheffield and John Kaminsky. One is a cornerback, one is a defensive end, so just helping out your defense there. We have Quadri Olison, running back out of Pittsburgh in the 5th round, and also cornerback Jordan Miller in the 5th round as well. So, not much to really note here in terms of those 5th or 5th round picks. We'll see what they do, but I'm not going to sit here and ever assume that a 4th or 5th round pick is going to do something significant. That's not a safe thing to do. So, how will the Atlanta Falcons fare this upcoming season? So, when you look at that off season, it's not that impressive. Like, you definitely brought in offensive linemen, right? You brought in 2 guards, James Carpenter and Jamon Brown. You look at the draft, you bring in Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry, 1 guard, 1 tackle. So you want to fortify the offensive line, and out of those 4 players, we should have, hopefully at least one of them that starts and does very well, one of them that starts and does at least decent. So I'll go ahead and project that and say that this Falcons offensive line will be stronger than it was last season. However, can it ever ascend to being where it was with Kyle Shanahan at the helm? And that's my biggest concern with the Atlanta Falcons. And also looking at their defense. Really, that's why. Because this defense still has its concerns. Now, if they can stay healthier than they were last season, immediately that's going to be an improvement. Right? For a 7-9 team to deal with all the injuries that they had at the safety position, on the defensive line, their cornerbacks, etc., if they can just stay healthier than they were last season, that's going to be an improvement right there. But I still think this Falcons defense is going to struggle, and that's a very concerning thing when you're going to be against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who can move the football, very well. Now, whether or not they turn over the football in the red zone is a different story, but they can move the football extremely well. Also the New Orleans Saints with Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Drew Brees, etc. And then even the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton, we know what kind of a threat he can be. I look at these defensive ends, and they just continue to disappoint me. Takaris McKinley and Vic Beasley. Vic Beasley, who really came on 2 years ago, and ever since then hasn't really done much, and last season may have had his worst season in the NFL yet. I don't know what happened to him. Takaris McKinley has not developed like the way we anticipated when he came into this league. Where is that pass rush going to come from for the Atlanta Falcons? Now, I love Grady Jarrett in the middle. I mean, how can you not? He's an absolute beast. But where will the help come from? I'm tired of talking about Adrian Claiborne. He's been one of the more mediocre defensive linemen in the NFL for quite some time. And Alan Bailey, you brought him in from the Kansas City Chiefs, and I like him. But he's not a needle mover. He's not a guy that you really need to game plan for. He's not a guy that you're afraid of. So there's a lot of things for me to still be concerned about. When I look at this Falcons defense, I still think it's going to struggle. But again, if this team is just healthier than they were last season, and they should be, I expect a win improvement. Will it be enough, to make the playoffs? It could be. But is this going to be one of those 11-5, 12-4, 13-3 years from the Atlanta Falcons? No, I just don't see that. I still think they're going to struggle to reach the levels they were under that Kyle Shanahan offensive coordinator year. So with that said, we move on yet again to yet another NFC South team. We move on to the Carolina Panthers, who I believe they finished with the same record as the Falcons last year, but I believe they finished 3rd, but regardless, they're going 3rd here. So we begin with Matt Paradis, who they signed from the Denver Broncos. They give him a 3-year, $29 million contract, and this is a decent deal. He's been a pretty mediocre center in the NFL for quite some time, but considering the fact that the Panthers, they know the situation with Ryan Khalil, it was time for them to definitely invest in the center position, and they do so here, so I'm okay with it. They do, however, lose Thomas Davis, a 2-year, $10 million deal to the LA Chargers. So they lose that veteran presence. He's been there for years, and they're definitely going to miss him. Look, I know his play has diminished a bit, but I thought he was still a good player, still a significant player, not one that would ever break the game, but still one that you needed to account for on the offensive end. And will definitely be missed in terms of this Carolina Panthers linebacking unit. But, when you have Luke Kuechly there, the leadership is not a problem. So I don't think they're going to miss him leadership-wise. But I still think his play might still be a little missed, as Shaq Thompson can definitely be inconsistent. Outside of that, we also have the next move listed, Devin Funchess. He leaves to the Indianapolis Colts. I talked about this last week when I was previewing the Indianapolis Colts. But, I don't care for Devin Funchess. He had his opportunities in Carolina to show up, to be a consistent weapon. We thought for a little bit, I want to say 2017 he showed that he could be that consistent weapon, and then last year was just a disappointment. And he's still only 25 years old, and, maybe he's able to reclaim his NFL career with the Indianapolis Colts, just as Eric Ebron did at the tight end position for them last year. But that remains to be seen. So I don't think this is a big loss, but it's going to definitely force Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore in order to do more this upcoming season. Then we have this big one, Gerald McCoy. He comes on 1 year, $8 million. Now, this is a big move. And what a great move here for the Carolina Panthers. And it's beautiful because you kept him in division. I mean, this is absolutely fantastic to keep Gerald McCoy in division. He is going to haunt the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's something that he absolutely wants to do. And it's going to be absolutely beautiful to see. So he's going to show up for those 2 games. And now he's going to be playing for probably the best team he's ever played for. Like, I don't think he's played Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think he was drafted 2010. The best record they've had under him, I think they actually may have won 10 games that 2010 season, but it's like 10 games he's won. And I think the Panthers might rival that. So, you're looking at Jeremy McCoy here, and you have to be excited about that. Matt Khalil, okay, he is lost to the Houston Texans. Who cares? I talked about this last week, and I talked about Matt Khalil. I don't care about Matt Khalil. I'm tired of talking about Matt Khalil. Matt Khalil stinks. I don't know why Matt Khalil continues to be signed by NFL teams. I don't know why he continues to be a thing. He sucks. We've waited for him since 2012 for him to do something, and we just keep on waiting, and I'm tired of waiting. So he will not be missed. Darrell Williams stays in Carolina, 1 year, $6 million. Okay. I really want him to be a little more consistent, but I'm okay with that. You guys signed Bruce Irvin away from the Atlanta Falcons, 1 year, $4 million. Okay, you guys get more out of him, man. We'll see, but it's okay because you guys drafted Brian Burns, which we're going to get into in a moment. David Mayo, he is signed from the Carolina Panthers to the San Francisco 49ers, 2 years, $2.5 million. Not much to really say there. Chandler Catanzaro, he leaves to the New York Jets. And I'm not sure who you guys got at the kicker position to replace him. I'll look at the roster in a moment. With that said, let's also move on and talk about the Carolina Panthers draft. And we start with Brian Burns in the first round. And you absolutely have to love this pick to me. I think Brian Burns will finally be the pass rusher that the Carolina Panthers have been absolutely begging for. They've been waiting for. They've been waiting for years. I remember when they drafted Coney Ely, I want to say 2013 out of Missouri. They thought he'd be that guy. He wasn't. I do believe that Brian Burns can take that man, so I'm looking forward to him. We have Greg Little, the offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Almost said Old Mississippi. Out of Ole Miss, he comes in the second round, 37th pick overall. And this is something that I'm excited about. I think he's another guy that could develop. Now, he definitely needs his development. And it concerns me because the Panthers have not developed their tackles very well, especially like Darrell Williams. But, I'm intrigued, and with the offensive changes they made to the coaching staff, I think he may be able to develop. But then we have the interesting one here. Okay, in the third round, the Panthers pick up quarterback Will Grier. Now, I think Will Grier stinks. Okay, I'm not a big fan of Will Grier. But it's very interesting to take a quarterback, albeit at the end of the round, still in the third round with Cam Newton, right? So does this begin to spell the beginning of the end for Cameron Newton in Carolina? Now, I discussed this when I made my Tennessee Titans potential quarterback video for 2020. I'd love to have Cam Newton. Look, I know he needs some help to win, but I don't think he needs that much. I think he is an above average quarterback in this league. Okay, I think he's above 16. Okay, if you're ranking the 32 quarterbacks, I think he's above 16. That's where I have him ranked. I have him ranked just at the same level right now as like a Baker Mayfield, as a Jared Goff. I have him above Deshaun Watson. I'd have him below a Carson Wentz and a Russell Wilson. But honestly, if all things are the same, I think he's at the same level as Big Ben. Like, I really think if you give Cam Newton the weapons of Big Ben, can you imagine Cam Newton with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell? I think he puts up Big Ben numbers. Maybe not 5,000 passing yards, but I think he gets you 4,500. And then with his legs as well, he's just as good as an offensive weapon overall, if not more valuable, because he's still going to give you rushing touchdowns as well. So I'd have him, honestly, especially if you tell me for this upcoming season, who would you rather have, Big Ben or Cam? I'm taking Cam. Phone and call the Tennessee Titans, because if y'all want to do Cam Newton for two first round picks, I'll do it today. I have no problem doing that today. And I mean, I know there's some injury concerns with him lately with his shoulder, whatever. Okay, that's fine. Bring him on. Ain't no problem. Ain't no problem, as Shannon Sharp would say. So go ahead and bring him on. I don't understand why people are hating on Cam Newton. It's so hard to me to carry, these inconsistent weapons in Carolina. You look at Kelvin Benjamin. He leaves. He stinks. Greg Olsen's been in and out of the lineup. Can't stay healthy. The offensive line is stunk. Right now, they're finally moving on from the Khalils, so that's fine. You look at the running back situation, it's better, but it's had its problems. At times he's made Mike Tolbert look good. So I'm a Cam Newton guy. If you guys want to move on from him, good. Give him to us. Okay, that's a lot to say about that. 4th round, Christian Miller, linebacker, okay. And then 5th round, running back, Jordan Scarlett, that's fine. So I think it's a good draft in terms of the top two, Brian Burns and Greg Little. Will Will Grier ever play? I don't know, but we'll see. And I can rephrase that to saying, will Grier ever play, right? There you go. That's a nice pun for you. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't, but if he does, again, go ahead and sling Cam Newton my way. So when you look at this Carolina Panthers team, I like it. And especially when you consider what they do every other year, they make the playoffs. Every odd year, that's their move. I don't know why, but you look at 2013, 15, 17, they make the playoffs. That's been their move. Okay, that's been their move. I think they're going to follow that again, but it's going to be close between them, the Chicago Bears, I think the Green Bay Packers, but it depends on their offensive chemistry. It's going to be close because I think, and I'll go ahead and spoil this, I think the Cowboys and Eagles, one of them will far and away take a wild card spot, okay? And then it's up to the rest of the NFC and who's battling there. Also, don't forget about the Minnesota Vikings and maybe even the Seahawks and 49ers, but I think they will miss out. I like these other teams more than them. And then even the Falcons and the Bucks, I won't completely sleep on them. In fact, I might give the Bucks and the Falcons more chance than the 49ers and Seahawks, to be quite honest with you, as I sit and as I quantify it today. So I'm excited for the Carolina Panthers this upcoming season, but I want to see this Cam Newton drama come to an end. Okay, no more Cam Newton drama. I don't know why there's any Cam Newton drama. So with that said, we ended this NFC South preview by talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Firstly, they lost Quan Alexander to the San Francisco 49ers. 4 years, $54 million. Now, Quan Alexander is definitely a guy that showcased his potential during his time in Tampa Bay. However, he did not show that he deserved a 4-year, $54 million deal. So I'm absolutely fine with Tampa Bay letting him go based on the morality of not wanting to pay him that much money. I'm right with you. Okay, I'm right there with you. I'm buying that. Fine, but you got to make sure you replace him, and I think they did. We're going to talk about that as we get into the draft picks. With that said, they also lost Adam Humphries, 4 years, $36 million. Now, this is unfortunate, but there's too many mouths to feed in Tampa Bay. This was expected. Now, the one thing, though, I think I would have tried to keep him because you also lost Deshaun Jackson. I don't think you need to lose both of them, Look, I know your tight end position is very strong. In fact, it's probably the strongest in the NFL. But it would have been nice to have kept Adam Humphries. To me, you would have had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Adam Humphries. That's a great trio. You combine them with O.J. Howard and Cameron Tate. We're talking, especially with this weak running back position. I think we need, 5 pass catches on this team consistently. So I would have been absolutely fine with that. And also with the weak running back situation, you're going to be running more 2 tight end sets. And, it's going to be better to have, those 2 tight ends in Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. So, I would have been just fine with that. But whatever. They let Adam Humphries go. I think that's a slight mistake, but whatever. Ryan Fitzpatrick leaves, so there's no more quarterback insurance. We also have Bradley Pinion being signed. Not really much to say there. He's a punter. But Ndamukong Suh, okay, so he comes in. You guys let go of Jerry McCoy, and in comes Ndamukong Suh. Suh signed for 1 year, $9.25 million. Jerry McCoy signed for 1 year, $8 million. Now, this is interesting. And sorry, I don't know why I keep having the burps today. But Jerry McCoy, I would have liked to have kept him. I can't remember what his cap figure was before the season. I want to say that it was like 12 million, maybe 11 million. So you guys saved money here, yeah. But, it's a worse player. I mean, and Ndamukong Suh is still a very good player, but McCoy is a better player at this stage in their careers, and they're actually only 1 year apart. But especially for your system and having been proven and having been a leader, I would have preferred to have kept Jerry McCoy. But the one thing is, it is a new regime. It's a new coaching regime in Tampa Bay. So I'm more okay with the move because they have no ties to Jerry McCoy as a coaching staff. You look at Ardarius Taylor. He leaves to the Cleveland Browns. Don't really care about that. You have Shaquille Barrett. Okay, he is signed to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 1 year, $4 million. And this is a good move. I like this move. I like Shaquille Barrett. He's been one of the good, unheralded pass rushers in the NFL for the past number of seasons. So I like that move. Rashad Perriman. He is signed 1 year, $4 million. Oh, come on. Can we please stop this Rashad Perriman stuff? I mean, come on, guys. I just don't know why these teams keep doing it. They can't stop themselves from signing Rashad Perriman. He stinks. He can't catch the football. He's nothing but athletic talent. He'll never be anything more than athletic talent. That is so frustrating. Now, they do re-sign Ryan Griffin, quarterback position, 2 years, $2.9 million. They bring in Deon Buchanan from the Arizona Cardinals. This is interesting. Only 1 year, $2.5 million here, but this is a guy that has played with Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles in that system and will definitely make some moves. Vinny Curry, however, was lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, 1 year, $2.25 million, and they signed Blaine Gabbert, who I have a horrible relationship with. They signed him to a 1 year, $1.6 million deal. That is an absolute thumbs down for me. I'm not a fan of Blaine Gabbert. I will never be a fan of Blaine Gabbert. However, he was able to do some things with Bruce Arians 2 or 3 years ago, so fine. I'll give him credit on that, but that's not something that I really understand. With that said, we move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers draft, and we begin with Devin White, the linebacker out of LSU, an absolute great pick here. And again, I mentioned just previously, how they lost Quan Alexander, but now you're bringing in Devin White out of LSU, a great leader for them, a great player for them, definitely one of the leaders of that defense, definitely someone that they missed sorely when he was suspended for that half in that very significant game. I want to say, was it against Alabama? I can't remember this past season, but it was a very significant game. He was missed for a half, and you saw his impact not only when he was missed, but also when he returned. So definitely like that addition there to the linebacker core. Second round, Sean Bunting. He's taken the cornerback out of Central Michigan. Don't know who this is. But the cornerback position is definitely one that's been sorely needed for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as Vernon Hargreaves has just not been that guy that we wanted him to be for Tampa Bay, and we can only rely upon Brent Grimes for so long. They also then doubled down the cornerback position as they take Jamal Dean, the cornerback out of Auburn, also in the third round. And also in the third round, they also take Mike Edwards, the safety out of Kentucky. So, a lot of additions to the defense. Also in the fourth round, they took defensive end Anthony Nelson, and they took a kicker. There's the kicker, Matt Gay, a kicker out of Utah in the fifth round. So a lot of moves there to hopefully help the defense. And look, last year they also drafted MJ Stewart and Carlton Davis It is another cornerback out of Auburn. So now a couple of cornerbacks out of Auburn for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Definitely some interesting moves. That's 4 cornerbacks drafted in the past 2 years by Tampa Bay on day 2. Right, so hopefully some of these guys can solidify themselves as starters moving forward. MJ Stewart had his problems last season, as did Carlton Davis. Where are we going to get consistent cornerback production from? I don't know, but Vernon Hargreaves is probably seeing himself out at this moment. So, how will the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fare this upcoming season? Again, I have my concerns. I would love to go all in on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bandwagon. I've done it before. I love the addition of Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles to the coaching staff. How can you not? These are 2 proven guys that have gone around and have won games in this league. You saw Bruce Arians take over for Chuck Pagano when he was out. He led the Colts to 11 wins with a rookie Andrew Luck. Immediately moves to Arizona. Immediately wins games there. Turns them into a Super Bowl contender. Okay, absolute Super Bowl contender there. And, came well short of the NFC Championship game against the Carolina Panthers in 2016. But, you still felt that they had a legitimate chance, at least going into that game, to win the game. In fact, I believe I had them. No, I had the Panthers winning the game, I'm pretty sure. But I really liked the Cardinals that year, and I thought they had a great chance of winning that game. They just came up definitely short because they got blown out that game by the Panthers. So, this whole season, as we know, relies upon Jameis Winston. Can he take that step forward? But the interesting thing about this Buccaneers team and why they're so dangerous and why they scare me so much. And, luckily, I wanted to make my official season preview video for them for quite some time. The thing about this team, they moved the ball so well last season. Like, I want to say they were a top 3 offense in terms of yards, at least top 5. Like, they moved the football down the field, but then they would just turn it over time and time and time again, and their defense was bad. So, when you input Bruce Arians, and if he can just cut down the turnovers, and you look at Jameis Winston last year, he had 19 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Now, unfortunately, I think that was only in like 10 games. So he was still on pace to throw like 16, 17 interceptions on the year, which is too many. But he was also on pace to throw like 30 touchdowns, which is a lot. So you're just getting a lot from the offense, good and bad. If they just eliminate the bad, those losses will quickly turn to wins. I mean, they had a lot of, close losses last season. And again, they put up their fair share amount of points. So this is a scary team. This is a very scary team that I don't know what to do with. And when we talk about these teams that go worst to first, when we talk about these teams that make the transitions and make the leaps from being the worst team in their divisions to then being the best team in their division the year after, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a prime candidate. I mean, this is one of the prime candidates. Like, I'm looking at these worst to first teams, and I think I'm going to make a whole video on this probably this week because I'm so bored. I think this might be the most likely team that could do it. Now, it's a difficult division because, if you ask me today, I like all 3 of these teams more than you in the Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, and New Orleans Saints. But this is still a team that I really, really look at and I'm really afraid of, and I'm trying to solidify that prediction. I'll give it to you guys whenever the Bucs come up. It's probably not going to be for another like 20 days because the Bucs are very low in that poll. Go ahead and vote in that 32 teams or 32 days poll if you want to see them ranked higher. But I'm looking out for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. They scare me. They have a lot of talent offensively at the wide receiver and tight end positions. They put up yards last season. I expect them to do the same this upcoming season. And if Bruce Arians can just limit the turnovers offensively and Todd Bowles fixes their defense, at least makes them average, oh my goodness, we're going to have problems when we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next season. So with that said, thus ends the NFC South preview. We are now at 53 minutes. So we're going to move it to the chat. If anyone wants to ask any questions in the chat, I will answer them. If not, then we'll go ahead and get out of here and call it yet another episode of the MJ Take Podcast. Again, there's not really much to talk about. We're still in the off season. Training camps haven't started yet, but whenever the actual NFL games start, We're going to be able to talk about those every single week, and there's going to be so much to talk about. There's going to be too much to talk about. We're going to talk about probably on this podcast, probably each week 14, 15 games, depending on how many I recapped during the weekend. I'll definitely recap time games still, and hopefully Sunday and Monday, and maybe even Thursday night football games as well. So anywhere from, let's say, 12 to 15 games will be discussed on these podcasts in the fall. So if you're in the live chat right now, go ahead and send in mailbag questions, and I'll answer them. They can be sports or non-sports related. And then we will get out of here. While I'm waiting on those to come in, are there any sports headlines? Anything? Oh, yeah, there's Tyreek Hill stuff. Yeah, so Tyreek Hill, he avoided suspension. He will be scot-free this upcoming season. He will, play 16 games, presumably, for the Kansas City Chiefs this upcoming season, assuming that he doesn't get himself in any more trouble. And look, I'm not one to get into, the nitty-gritty in terms of morality and whether or not this is something that the league should have done. But looking at the evidence, man, I think he deserved a suspension. For him to say to his baby mama, you should be afraid of me too, and then expletive right after that. And there's also been NFL players in the past that have been suspended for those type of remarks. To me, this is definitely a situation in which Tyreek Hill should have been probably suspended at least for 2 games. I mean, come on. For him to get off completely scot-free is absolutely ridiculous. All right, so we have some mailbag questions coming in. We start with Gary Sanderson, who asks, how are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. I'm just living life. I have my youth, I have my health, and I have my wealth. And although my wealth is not monetary, I have my wealth in terms of my friends and just my, standard of living and, just the small parts of life, like just having food on the table and everything. So my youth, my health, and my wealth is all there. And wow, that's there. I'll always be doing great. Bobby Means, he says Atlanta defensively could be scary if we stay healthy. Okay, I don't know about scary. I mean, can the Atlanta Falcons defense just be decent first? What are you talking about scary? What's going to be scary about the Atlanta Falcons defense? Now, look, they have a lot of athletic talent. Okay, I will give them that. The Atlanta Falcons have a lot of athletic talent. You look at, Keanu Neal. You look at Grady Jarrett. You look at Vic Beasley. You look at Takaris McKinley. You look at Deion Jones. They're all very good athletes, sure. They don't play well enough consistently. Now, Grady Jarrett does, okay. But everyone else, they don't play well enough consistently. Vic Beasley, I mean, again, he had that monster year 2 seasons ago, and he hasn't done anything since. That's been a very frustrating thing to watch. And then you look at, Desmond Trufant, he has his problems. If the Atlanta Falcons defense stays healthy, they might be good. And that's the max. This will not be a top 5 defense. A scary defense is a top 5 defense. That's a scary defense. It's not going to be a top 5 defense. Could it be top 10? Yeah. Maybe could rival top 10. But even then, I don't think it'd be top 10. Like, I still think your defense has a ways to go. And I've already seen these players, and in the NFL, you only are given, a couple amount of years before you just are written off. It shouldn't take a cornerback or a defensive end 4 or 5 years before he reaches, his potential. After 2 years, really, you should be at your potential as an NFL player, unless you play the quarterback position, to me. I mean, honestly, especially defensively. So, to me, if the Atlanta Falcons really improve their defense, they might be decent. Like, they might be 17th or 18th in the league. But look at them last season. Look, they were ranked 28th in the league. Okay, there's a long way to climb going from 28th to then being called scary. That is not something that I can say. Matt, the NFL fanatic, asks, what do you think about the Deion and Grady Jarrett extensions? Let me look up the figures for those deals again. But, just in terms of talent, just re-signing those 2 players, I think you had to love it. I mean, I think these are definitely the 2 best defensive players on this Falcons unit. Definitely 2 guys that you want to build upon and build around. And they probably set the market because they're probably talented enough to. Let me check their contract details right now. But even if they did, I'd be fine with it because, these are contracts that will be beat very soon. Yeah, so Deion Jones, 4 years, $57 million extension. Let me check how that looks like in terms of the position salaries for that for inside linebacker, but I'm sure it's probably number 1. And again, I'd be fine with it because, again, is Deion Jones the best inside linebacker in the NFL? No. But is he top 10? Yes. And when you're top 10 and it's time for you to get paid, you're going to get paid like you're number one until the next guy comes around. And then 4 or 5 years from now, you will be ranked probably, 15. And then it's time for you to get paid again. And that's just how the NFL works for this echelon of player. And then Grady Jarrett got 4 years, $68 million, which again, I would imagine is top race position. So, these contracts don't surprise me. I'm all for these contracts. These, again, when I look at this Falcons defense, it's been very frustrating, but these have definitely been the two best players for their defense over the past 3 seasons. So go ahead and pay them. The question is, can we get more talent around these guys? And also, would I extend Desmond Trufant when his contract extension comes up? Would I extend Vic Beasley? That is where I began to say, okay, I'm not paying those guys a lot of money because I don't trust those guys. Okay, those are guys that have had problems staying consistent for this football team, and I'm going to be very, very cautious before paying those guys. But Deion Jones and Grady Jarrett, no, I have no problem with that. Yeah, Deion Jones is ranked second in terms of inside linebacker average salary rankings behind C.J. Mosley, and he's better than C.J. Mosley. So you have to like that, but he's paid more than Quan Alexander, Luke Kuechly, Bobby Wagner. Is he better than Luke Kuechly, Bobby Wagner? No. But whenever those guys get extended, they're going to be paid more than him. So I think he got paid exactly what he deserved. And then you look at Grady Jarrett. He got third most in terms of defensive tackle money behind Fletcher Cox and Aaron Donald. He got paid more than Geno Atkins, Kawan Short, Jarrell Casey, Marthel Darius. But I think he got paid more, and I think he's better than all of these players. The only player that is getting paid less than Grady Jarrett, who I really think is better. I mean, I'm a Titans fan, so I might say, no, honestly, I think Grady Jarrett might be better than Jarrell Casey. Even as a Tennessee Titans fan, I might have to admit that. And I think at this point, with the level of consistency that I've seen from him, I'd probably rank him over Geno Atkins and Kawan Short. So I think he's getting exactly what he's due. I like the extensions of Deion Jones and Grady Jarrett. Jay Dizzle. What's up, Jay Dizzle? He asks, is your Snapchat name still the same? Yes, it is. And by the way, we should hang out sometime. Jay Dizzle, I don't know what you're doing this upcoming weekend, but we'll try to link up. Gary Sanderson asks, where do you rank Dak among the 32 starting quarterbacks? And then this will end the podcast. So Dak Prescott is a very interesting case study. And I don't have my quarterback rankings in front of me. But he'd be about 17 or 18 for me. So let's say there's a tier, and this is in no particular order, but there's a tier of Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, Breeze. There's a tier of, and I put Russell Wilson in there. Then there's a tier of like Andrew Luck and Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, Ben Roethlisberger. Did I say Carson Wentz? If I didn't, Carson Wentz. There's a tier of those guys. And then there's a tier of Matthew Stafford, who I would put over him. By the way, Phillip Rivers would also be in that previous tier. There'd be that tier. I'd put him below Matthew Stafford. But I definitely put him above like a Derek Carr. I put him above Marcus Mariota, considering what they've done in their careers. And I'd put him above like a Derek Carr, Andy Dalton, etc. So, yeah, he'd be about maybe even 16. I think 16, 17 is where I'd put him. Now, the question right now is, should they pay him all that money? I got to see what he does this season to deserve that. But, I have my problems with that. And my problem is just, man, I would try, okay? And I don't know if they're going to do this. I would really try to get, like, the Cowboys on the phone and try to trade for Matthew Stafford or something. That's the only move. I don't think you move on from Dak and say, okay, we're just going to go into the abyss. Okay, we're going to go into the abyss. We're going to, just draft some rookie quarterback or just, go into free agency and see what happens or something crazy like that. But if you can get a deal done for a quarterback that you feel is better than Dak, but give them Dak, I think that could happen. Like, the NFL does not have this type of trade creativity, unfortunately. Like, the teams aren't that creative when it comes to NFL trades, which is unfortunate. But this would be a nice opportunity for a trade. The Cowboys, to me, my one problem with Dak, I just feel like so many quarterbacks could win with this team. And I don't think you should pay the premium that he wants to get paid. I think you could get a better deal. And I think Matthew Stafford would be a better deal. I think if you wanted to do it, and you'd have to call them and ask them, I think Phillip Rivers would be a better deal. I think those are the two that come first to my head. I think you get better production out of them. I think you'd win a Super Bowl, and I think it'd be worth it. If you don't do that, then you have to re-sign them, because it's just better than just going down the road and just, trying to draft some random quarterback that you don't know yet. It's nice to look at like Patrick Mahomes and say, oh, look at what they did. They drafted Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs did, and they got good, and we need to do that. But it's much easier said than done. So I'd rank him about 16 or 17. And we'll answer one other question by Matt, the NFL Fanatic. And by the way, if you're an NFL fan, make sure to subscribe to Matt, the NFL Fanatic. He has great weekly picks on his channel. Make sure to check him out. He also asked Derrick Henry at 99 for the NFL Top 100 this year. Your thoughts? Also 84 for this year is Cleveland's wide receiver Jarvis Landry. Now, this is interesting to me. Derrick Henry being ranked 99. Now, I really want to see what the other running backs are on this list and see like the final running back rankings of this list. It's very, it's like picking at needles. Whenever you're trying to compare, like, okay, running back Derrick Henry versus, defensive tackle Kawan Short. Like, okay, you can't really compare that. I mean, what kind of comparison is that? Who's the better football player? You can say whatever you want. You can pick one over the other. You can do whatever you want, but it's kind of nonsensical. So I really want to compare within positions. However, let me say this: Derrick Henry being ranked 99, I think it is just because our passing offense last year was so awful. It was so absolutely awful. And yet, for Derrick Henry to still pretty much single-handedly lead us to victories, with the defense definitely getting involved heavily, but to really offensively lead us single-handedly against the New York Giants and the Washington Redskins and the Jacksonville Jaguars late in the year when we needed those wins, that's a top 100 player, because I can't tell you, a lot of players in this league that really led their team to 3 wins. And I look at those 3 wins: Redskins, Jaguars, and Giants. He led us 100%. Without him, we lose the game. If you put, any other average running back, you put Jordan Howard, we lose the game. We lose the game. And I love Marcus Mariota, but with how the receivers were last season, no way. We lose that game. So I think he's definitely a top 100 player, and it's going to be very interesting to me to see what happens this upcoming season, whether or not the Titans retain him. And I want to make a video on this because this is a very interesting topic to me. Derrick Henry is a good NFL running back. Will he ever be a good NFL running back for a very prolific passing offense? Can he have a role in a very prolific passing offense? I have my doubts about that. But we'll see. And hopefully this season gives me clarity on that, because I'd love to have Derrick Henry on this team moving forward. But will you dedicate the contract that's going to be required of him, probably $8, $9, maybe $10 million a year? Let me look up real quick what the salaries are for running backs in this league. In terms of, he's not going to get top money. He's not going to get Todd Gurley or Ezekiel Elliott money, but just under that echelon. Yeah, so he'll probably get like Devontae Freeman money. Devontae Freeman's getting an average of $8.25 million a year. I expect him to get that kind of deal. But with Marcus Mariota being an upcoming free agent, with, Jack Conklin, Logan Ryan, it's going to be very interesting. And I think I'm going to make that video tomorrow, because that's a very interesting conversation. So with that said, that will end yet another edition of the MJ Take Podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think Apple Podcasts and iTunes are the same thing, whatever. And also SoundCloud and YouTube.com/JamesCarterTV, or you can just go to the search bar and look up Sports Fan Entertainment. I'll be back next week, and we will preview the AFC North. So make sure you stick around and subscribe for that. And also, make sure you stick around and subscribe for the 32 teams in 32 days series that is currently going on the Sports Fan Entertainment YouTube channel. Until next time, this has been your host, MJ. I'm out. See you all later.